The charity gala was in full swing at the Metropolitan, crystal chandeliers glittering above Manhattan's elite. My parents held court near the center, champagne flutes in hand, surrounded by their usual circle of real estate moguls and property developers. I hung back near the edges, checking property acquisition reports on my phone while pretending to be absorbed in my role as a real estate assistant, the only title my parents would acknowledge despite the fact that I owned the very building we were standing in. "Alexandra, darling." My mother's voice carried across the room. "Come tell the Hendersons what you do. Their daughter just made junior partner at Douglas Development." I tucked away my phone, which had just alerted me to the successful acquisition of my third office tower this month, and walked over, wearing the modest dress my mother thought appropriate for my salary level. "I'm a real estate assistant," I said simply, watching my mother's face pinch with familiar disappointment. What she didn't know was that Skyline Properties, the company name on my deliberately understated business card, had quietly become one of the largest commercial real estate holders in Manhattan. "An assistant?" Mrs. Henderson's eyebrows rose. "But didn't you graduate from Wharton? Top of her class," my father interjected, "and yet?" He sighed dramatically. "Alexandra has always been comfortable with less ambitious roles." I bit back a smile, thinking of the meeting I'd had that morning with my executive team, reviewing plans for our newest skyscraper. The same building my father's firm had tried and failed to acquire last week. Speaking of roles, my mother brightened. "Richard's firm is expanding their offices, taking over 3 more floors in the Blackwood building. Now that's real estate success." I nodded politely, remembering the lease renewal application sitting on my desk, the one from my father's firm, requesting expansion in the Blackwood building. The building I'd purchased through a shell company 6 months ago. "How's that little rental apartment working out?" my father asked, clearly trying to change the subject from my embarrassing career choice. "Still in that walk-up in Brooklyn?" "It's comfortable," I replied, not mentioning that I actually lived in the penthouse of one of my buildings on Park Avenue. The Brooklyn apartment was just another piece of my carefully maintained cover. My phone buzzed again, a message from my actual assistant. "Miss Chin, your father's firm's lease renewal application needs your signature. Also, the acquisition of the Madison Square portfolio is complete." "Probably her boss asking her to make copies," my mother stage whispered to Mrs. Henderson. "Such a waste of potential." I excused myself to check the message, walking past the massive windows that overlooked the city skyline. From here I could see at least 12 buildings I owned, their lights twinkling in the evening darkness. Not that anyone in this room knew that. "Alexandra." My father's voice followed me. "The Blackwood building management still hasn't responded about our expansion. Since you're in real estate, perhaps you could put in a good word with someone." I thought about the stack of documents waiting in my office. Lease agreements, expansion requests, and renovation permits, all requiring my signature as the building's owner. "I'll see what I can do," I said mildly, watching him return to his colleagues. My phone lit up again, another successful acquisition alert. While they spent the evening bragging about individual office floors, I was quietly building an empire, one building at a time. The next morning in my real office, the entire top floor of the Skyline Tower, I reviewed my father's lease renewal application. The letterhead of his firm, Chin & Associates Real Estate Development, looked small compared to the Skyline Properties logo embossed on my desk. "Miss Chin." My executive assistant, Maria, entered with the morning reports. "Your father's firm called again about the Blackwood building expansion. They're getting anxious about the lack of response." I smiled, thinking of last night's gala. "And the Madison Square portfolio acquisition?" "Complete. We now own 60% of the commercial real estate in that district." She paused. "Including your father's current headquarters building." On my wall of screens, real-time footage showed my parents arriving at their office, completely unaware that I'd purchased their building last week. My father strode in confidently, probably heading to another meeting where he'd boast about his real estate empire, an empire that now operated in buildings I owned. "Miss Chin," Maria continued, "there's something else. Your father's firm is bidding on the Riverside development project." "The one we're also bidding on?" I raised an eyebrow, reviewing the proposal documents. "Yes. They're presenting to the city council next week. Your father seems quite confident about winning the contract." My phone buzzed, a text from my mother. Darling, saw a posting for a junior property manager position. Much better than being an assistant. Shall I put in a word? Face blowing a kiss. I glanced at the organizational chart on my wall, showing hundreds of property managers who reported up through various channels to me. No thanks, Mom. I'm comfortable where I am. Alexandra, my father's voice came through on the intercom. I've scheduled a meeting with the owner of the Blackwood building. Finally going to meet this mysterious MA Skyline person. I pressed the button. When's the meeting, Dad? Tomorrow morning. Going to show them how real estate development is done. You should come learn how actual property negotiations work. I'll be there, I replied, thinking of the sleek Seo outfit already prepared for tomorrow, so different from my usual assistant attire. Maria returned with more updates. The new Skyline Properties signs are ready to be installed in all our recently acquired buildings, including Chin and Associates headquarters. Hold those for now, I said, watching my father on the security feed as he prepared for tomorrow's meeting, completely unaware he'd be negotiating with his own daughter. Let's wait until after tomorrow's revelation. Another text from my mother. Your father's very excited about his meeting with Skyline Properties owner tomorrow. That's what happens when you aim higher than being an assistant, dear. I turned to the window, looking out at my ever-growing collection of buildings. Tomorrow they'd finally learn who really owned the towers they worked in, the offices they wanted to expand into, and the buildings they hoped to develop. Maria, I called, is everything ready for tomorrow? Yes, Ms. Chin. The conference room is prepared, security has been briefed, and all the documents are ready. She smiled slightly. Including the full portfolio showing every property your father's firm operates in that you actually own. I picked up the lease renewal application, already knowing I'd approve it, but not before tomorrow's meeting showed them exactly who they'd been dismissing all these years. The next morning I arrived early at the Blackwood building, bypassing the main entrance for my private elevator. In my executive suite, I changed from my assistant clothes into a designer suit that cost more than my father's car. Miss Chin, Maria entered with the morning briefing. Your father and his team are in the lobby. They seem quite confident. Through the security feed, I watched my father straightening his tie, rehearsing what looked like a practice speech. They have no idea who they're dealing with, he was saying to his partners. We'll show this MA Skyline how real estate veterans handle negotiations. If only he knew, Maria murmured, that his real estate assistant daughter owns half of Manhattan. My phone buzzed, a text from Mom. Darling, your father's meeting the mysterious Skyline Properties owner today. This is what real success looks like. Perhaps you could learn something? Show time, I said, gathering the documents that would reveal just how much of their real estate empire actually belonged to me. Send them up. I watched on the monitors as my father's team was escorted to the conference room. They paused, admiring the view of the city, my city, through the floor-to-ceiling windows. The owner's running late, my father grumbled, checking his watch. Probably some trust fund kid who inherited the company. If he only knew I'd built Skyline Properties from scratch, turning my Wharton thesis project into a real estate powerhouse that now overshadowed his firm. Miss Chin. Maria's voice came through the intercom. They're ready. I took one last look in the mirror, seeing not the assistant they'd dismissed, but the CEO I'd always been. Then I walked to the conference room. The door opened. My father stood up, ready to deliver his rehearsed speech, then froze. Alexandra, what are you doing here? This is a high-level meeting. We're waiting for MA Skyline. Actually, I said, walking to the head of the table, you're right on time. I'm MA Skyline. Madison Alexandra Skyline Chin, founder and CEO of Skyline Properties. The silence was deafening. My father's mouth opened and closed without sound. That's impossible, he finally managed. You're a real estate assistant. No, I smiled, pressing a button that filled the screens with my company's portfolio. That was just a cover. While you were busy dismissing my career choices, I was building this. The displays showed building after building, property after property, including their headquarters, their current offices, and every major development they operated in. The Blackwood building, my father whispered. Wine. Along with your headquarters, your satellite offices, and most of the buildings you manage properties in. I started distributing folders. These are the complete records of every property you operate that's actually owned by Skyline Properties. By me. My father's hands shook as he opened the folder. All this time. All those mysterious building owners you could never meet. The unsigned responses to your proposals. The delayed lease renewals. I gestured to the city outside. That was me. My phone buzzed, another text from Mom. How's the assistant work today, dear? Your father's in an important meeting with a real property mogul. I smiled, typing back. Actually, Mom, I am the meeting. Remember all those buildings you thought Dad owned? Check the property records. Look for MA Skyline. Your assistant daughter sends her regards. Now, I said, turning back to my shell-shocked father and his team, about that lease renewal and expansion request. I pulled out the papers, my CEO's signature line clearly visible at the bottom. Shall we negotiate? Alexandra, my father started. I never knew. Clearly, I replied, settling into my chair, the real estate mogul they'd never thought I could be. Now let's discuss your new rent. I hear the market rates have gone up considerably.